It's good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's live virtual event. My name is Cassidy Quintana. I am the brand ambassador here at Travel Media Group, and I am super excited about this topic today. It's a little bit different than what I've been doing in the past with my social success series, but super excited about this because not only is Gen Z a very popular term we're hearing right now, but I myself am a member of this generation, last of the 90s babies born in 99. So super excited to talk to you guys about this topic today. Couple of things before we dive in. Make sure you can see myself as well as the presentation. There should be a few buttons below the presentation if you're not able to see both of those. So make sure that you do that. Secondly, there's going to be a lot of great information throughout this entire presentation. Feel free to take notes, take screenshots, but you will receive this recording at the end of the event. So don't feel like you need to get it all down right now. You'll be able to go back and access that as many times as you want. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. We've got a lot of information to cover, but super excited, and I hope you guys are too. So let's learn a little bit about Gen Z before we jump in. So this generation is born between 97 and 2012. So our oldest members are 28 and our youngest are 13. So kind of a wide range of ages we have throughout this generation. Really different experiences growing up, honestly. I feel like my age group growing up was a lot different than the kids that are growing up right now that are still considered Gen Z. But what's important to note is that this is kind of where social media took off, right? So we had Facebook come through 2004, Twitter in 2006, and Instagram in 2010. So as I was growing up, I was watching all of these new platforms come out. Wasn't really too sure about it in the beginning, right? But now, today, we know that social media is fueling every young generation that's out there. So what's important to know as well is that Gen Z is the digital native generation. So what this means is that everybody in Gen Z grew up with the internet, right? We didn't know what life was like without the internet. And then especially these kids that were born in 2012 don't know what life was like before social media, which is crazy to think about. But honestly, social media has not been around for that long. It feels like it's been around for a lot longer. But when we think about Gen Z, right, we're thinking about TikTok, we're thinking about Instagram, we're thinking about how addicted we are to our phones, but that's really all they've known. That's all we've known our entire life. So it makes sense when we think about it. And it's interesting to think about how this has shaped travel as well, right? When we think about Gen Z, there was a study done last year that a third of Gen Z travelers plan to extend a business trip last year to enjoy leisure time before or after their work obligation. So we noticed with this new generation coming into the workforce, there's a big push for the work-life balance, right? Especially after COVID, work from home has blown up. But this idea of a work-life balance is one of the top priorities for Gen Z, right? We are passionate about our job. We want to work hard, but we also want to enjoy our life, right? When you're in your 20s like me, this is the time people are like, go travel. You need to travel before you get married and have kids. But we also have jobs, right? So any way we can combine those two things is great. But I also want to touch on how social media has shaped this, right? 66% are using social for inspiration. I've touched a little bit about that on my social success series. So if you haven't checked those out, make sure you go to our website and tune into those. But this top message is kind of the gist of Gen Z and travel, right? A constant online presence, growth of social media, and heightened global awareness are all contributing to this shift in consumer values, expectations, and travel trends. So we'll talk a little bit more about Gen Z values and expectations as we move forward. But first, we kind of need to cover the Gen Z booking funnel. So if you attended my webinar last year, we did kind of a traveler's journey, similar thing, but this is directed more towards Gen Z. So at the top, we have inspiration. So when we think about TikTok and Instagram, like I mentioned, a lot of the times people think about, the dancing trends, viral videos that are happening on TikTok. But for most of us, it's not just about entertainment, right? I know for me, I get more of my news from TikTok and Instagram than I do from any other source. I'm learning more about things I never knew, things that are happening in the world that I wouldn't have known unless I was on social media, right? It's very rare that people are turning on the TV to watch the news these days. We're getting it directly from our phones, and Gen Z specifically is getting it from social media. So rather than just using it for entertainment, we're using it for education, news, and of course, search engine, which we'll touch on in a little bit. For research and decisions. So when Gen Z is thinking about going on a trip, they want to research and make their decisions. There's three things that are usually at the forefront. Of course, we're still looking at reviews because that's first and foremost. Two, user-generated content. So this is the content that people that are staying at your property are posting. So this is not coming from your hotel's profile. This is coming from your guests specifically that are tagging your hotel that other people are seeing. And values as well. This has become a really big topic for Gen Z, as you know, we're talking about sustainability and some other measures that is what Gen Z is passionate about. So we'll touch a little bit on those values too coming up. Booking. We know that Gen Z is mobile first, right? Like I said, we do everything on our phones. When we go to book, we're looking for hotel apps. We're looking at the website. So make sure your website is mobile friendly. We're looking at budget platforms. You know, if there's OTA apps that will show us cheapest to most expensive, and loyalty. I was doing some research before putting this presentation together and noticed how Gen Z is really into brand loyalty. And the reason behind that is because you're able to build points, right? You're able to get free upgrades. You're able to get good deals because you're a member. So seeing a big push for brand loyalty from Gen Z as well. And of course, after they stay with you, we're always going to go back to that experience and sharing on social media, right? I know myself, I take a million photos when I'm on a trip. I want everybody to know what I'm doing, right? So of course, after I go stay somewhere, I take those photos and I share with everybody on social media. So that's kind of the end wrap up of the booking funnel for Gen Z, is that experience and sharing. So let's talk a little bit about social media being Gen Z's search engine. We touched on this last webinar as well about how to create social videos. It's not going away. Clearly right here, I did 2 searches, one on TikTok, one on Instagram, best hotels in Orlando. Look what comes up. Tons of videos, right? Lots of videos, not only from the property itself, but from guests that have stayed there that are reviewing it as well. So like I said, 2/3 of Gen Z is using social media for inspiration. We need to understand though that, again, social media for Gen Z is not just about hopping on the latest trends, right? A lot of the time I see across all industries, not just hospitality, but something will start trending on TikTok and everybody feels like they have to get on it to get their brand out there, right? That's not really the case. Sometimes trends won't work for your property. So it's really important to understand what works for you, what's really going to capture Gen Z and what they're going to appreciate. Because of course, although we're super digital first, digital natives, we still crave that connection and authenticity, right? Especially right now, we're seeing AI left and right. Honestly, sometimes it's hard to tell what's real and what's fake these days. So we're really craving that authenticity. And that the best way to do that is with videos, right? We can see, you can't really you can AI a video, but if it's coming from a guest, it's super hard to fake that. This is a real experience, a real guest who stayed with us. And I myself, as a potential guest, can see myself through that video. Same thing with this Google short video tab. If you take this same prompt, best hotels in Orlando, go to Google, type it in. There's now a tab at the top that says short video. When you click that, guess what's coming up? Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, even Facebook sometimes, those videos. So if you're not posting videos, you're not getting guests to post videos about your property, you might as well not even search to see if you're on that tab because you won't be. So it's really important to make sure that social video is at the forefront of your content strategy so that when people are going to that short video tab on Google, you're there as well. So let's talk a little bit about what kind of content Gen Z wants to see. The number one thing to remember here is how short our attention span is, right? That's why TikTok has done so well, is because it's super easy. You don't really have to use your brain to scroll through a video. So before you think about posting something, if it's a video, if it's an image or a graphic, would you stop scrolling for this post? Attention span is like 2 to 3 seconds now. If you don't catch them like that, they're moving on. They're swiping. So making sure that before you post it, would you stop to look at this photo? Is there anything in this photo that's worth looking at? Is the caption going to grab my attention? Do I want to take the time to read that caption? Going back to that real guests, real moments, real experiences, right? Touching back on that AI thing, the best thing you can do in your social strategy is making sure that your content is real, right? It doesn't have to be polished perfection. That's what social media is for. We want it to be real. We want it to be authentic. And again, give those potential guests a glimpse of every aspect of their stay. So like this image, you know, it's of the room. This is what your room would look like. Take a look at this view from our pool. I could see myself there, right? I could see myself in that room, that pool. That looks like a great time. And because I like these images, because they're nice to look at, I'm probably going to read the caption to learn some more too. And how can you get all these great photos? You don't have to rely on yourself all the time to do that. Encourage your guests to tag your property, and then in turn, you can use their content with their permission into your strategy. And that goes back to those real guests, real moments that Gen Z really values. So now let's talk a little bit about values-based booking. I feel like we all know, and this is probably across all demographics, budget friendly is going to be coming first, right? Especially right now with how things are. We want to find the best bang for our buck. But Gen Z is not just booking with their wallets, right? They're booking with values first. They want to support brands, give their money to brands that care about what they care about as individuals. So, of course, first, we'll talk about the budget savvy, experience rich. I've seen a really big push recently, and even myself have done this as well, looking for travel packages, right? Something I can pay for my flight, my hotel, and get some experience out of it too. Recently, I went to New York for Christmas. We did this. We got flight and hotel all within the same package for a set price. That was great because not only was it easy to book, but it was a little bit cheaper than if we were to do it separately. So this is what Gen Z is really looking for, to be budget conscious, especially because a lot of us are new to the workforce. We don't have a ton of money, but we want to travel, right? This is what we want to do. We want to prioritize affordability, but we want to make sure that it's value packed, right? We're getting everything out of the money that we're putting in that we want to do. And one other thing I want to touch on before we move on to the next is that Gen Z is hyper aware of hidden fees, and they're going to look for that transparency from you. So a lot of the times, especially in our Respond and Resolve department, we're seeing a lot of reviews about, oh, I didn't know they were going to charge me for this. It would have been nice to know if they were going to charge me for that. That's something that no matter how good their stay was, if they get charged at the end when they're checking out for something that they weren't ready for, it ruins their whole stay, right? It probably ruins the 5-star review you were about to get. So make sure that that is forefront. Here's all the things it's going to cost, especially for Gen Z that doesn't just have money to blow. This is going to be something that's super important to them, to know exactly how much they need to budget for exactly how much they're going to spend. Number 2, I can't talk about it enough, authenticity and uniqueness, right? We're looking for accommodations that provide a unique and immersive experience. So usually when we're traveling somewhere, right, we want to make sure that it's somewhere that we want to be involved in. So this is something that you should really focus on too in your social strategy. Is people are coming to stay at your hotel, yes, but they're obviously coming to that destination for a reason. They're only going to spend so much time in your property. So if you can really push how great of a location you have, all the great things that are to do in your area, that's really going to help, right? So today's consumer wants a narrative that feels personal, timely, and emotionally relevant. And going back to that attention span, if you don't hit those marks, Gen Z is swiping, right? They're going to the next property that fulfills those things. So these 2 images are 2 hotels that I love their feeds, because honestly, looking at this, you wouldn't know that this is hotel content, right? This kind of just looks like, I don't know, could be a restaurant, could just be an account for the city, things that are happening. But this is how Gen Z sees themselves in those moments, right? These feeds are like, I want to be a part of that. I want to be in those photos. I want to experience that. So that personalization, that authenticity, if you want to capture Gen Z's attention, you got to understand what they want to see, right? And again, number 1, keeping it genuine. This is what they want their experience to be like. If they're going to spend the money, they want it to be worth their while. And possibly one of the biggest values that we're seeing right now with Gen Z is sustainability, right? This continues to trend. Our podcast, The Sweet Spot, did an episode with Green Key Global. It was all about the path to sustainability. So if you haven't checked that out, I believe it's linked in our resources on the dashboard. So make sure you take a look at that, because this is something that's becoming important, and I honestly don't see it going away anytime soon. So I've included a screenshot right here of some trends that you can do. But Gen Z is really prioritizing low impact lodging. They're conscious of the environment footprint. They want to have eco-friendly travel options, right? So some easy ways, some low-hanging fruit that you can do to tackle this, especially if you have those loyalty members, make some branded water bottles that they can refill. Have some water bottle refilling stations around the property. Have towel reusage. I feel like that's the biggest one that most hotels are doing now, is, you know, the little sign in the bathroom that says, we're going green, please reuse your towel if possible. And then make recycling easy. I think this is pretty popular too, having another recycling bin next to the normal trash can. Those are low cost, low effort things that you can do that really show that you're trying, right? And this is something that's really good to include. Again, go back to the social strategy, but that's where Gen Z is. If you can capitalize this there, you're already 10 steps ahead of your competitors. So making sure that you talk about that. If you use local vendors for your produce, talk about that. You know, if you have cleaning supplies that you use that are eco-friendly, talk about that. Ways you're limiting food waste, if you're donating it at the end of the night. These are all things that Gen Z cares about. So if you're posting about it and actually making an effort to do that, it's going to go a long way. Next, we have the tech savvy guest. This is what defines Gen Z, right? When you think about Gen Z, I'm sure you think about glued to their phone, addicted to social media, all of those things. And I can probably say that it is true, right? I know for myself, I'm on Instagram and TikTok whenever I'm not doing something else. It might be a little bit bad, but that's the generation I grew up in, right? Times are changing. This is how we're doing everything these days. We're digital natives, but when it comes to booking a hotel, we're expecting a smooth and convenient experience. So this can be from online booking their stay, checking in on the app, on the mobile app. Digital room keys are now a thing. And probably the number one thing is reliable Wi-Fi. I can guarantee you, your kid or your grandkid, when they get to a restaurant, they get to a hotel, is what's the Wi-Fi password, right? I'm guilty of this, especially if I'm in a place where the signal's that great. I'm in another country, or I'm in a state where it's not as good as it is here. I'm asking for the Wi-Fi password. This is the number one thing, right? And not only for Gen Z that are traveling on vacation, but work from home that are traveling on business, super important. Wi-Fi is the number one thing that they're looking for, right? If everything can be digital and be smooth, you'll be fine. Because if something's not working, the Wi-Fi, digital room key, Gen Z is going to let you know. And maybe not in the nicest way. It'll probably be online. Yeah, the Wi-Fi sucked. Don't stay here, right? Especially because they're wanting to share those experiences on social media. If they can't do that, it's not going to turn out well. This next stat, super important, 20% of Gen Z uses AI to plan trips. This new update, well, it's in beta testing right now, that Expedia is doing with Instagram. So my coworker, Chris Zhao, if you're not connected with him on LinkedIn, he is also on this dashboard. Make sure you follow him. He's actually the one that introduced this to me. I didn't even know this was happening. But apparently, Expedia is partnering with Instagram, where you can send a reel of a property or location to Expedia, and in turn, they have an AI system that will make a full travel itinerary for you. And you can see in the screenshot, it's even sending me places to stay, places to eat, which is crazy to think about, right? Because when we think about social media, it's not really a booking platform, right? We're on there for brand awareness. We want to get our name out there. We're not really thinking that we're going to get business from social media, but this might change the game, especially if this works for Expedia. I imagine other OTAs are going to hop on this. I imagine a lot of hotel brands are going to try and do this. So really important, make sure you follow Chris, because he'll be following this closely about new things that are happening with this trend. But same thing, Gen Z wants personalization without having to dig for it. This is an update that's going to do that for them, right? You send it to Expedia, hey, these are the things I'm interested in. Here's your itinerary. I didn't have to do like any work. I didn't have to do any research. It did it for me based on what I'm interested in. So that last bullet point, I've already pretty much touched on it. We're relying heavily on digital tools for planning, booking travel, including the apps and the online platform. So make sure that your apps are up to date, they're running smoothly, making sure that your website is mobile first friendly as well. And the last value, social isn't all digital. I know we're digital first, we're digital natives, but now more than ever, I'm seeing, especially for myself, we want that connection. You may not believe it, but we actually do like personal face-to-face connection, right? So when we're looking for places to travel, especially Gen Z is more prone to travel with their friends, especially once they're out of college and in the workforce, they can travel with their friends now. They're looking for accommodations that have those communal spaces. So we've seen a lot of hotels implementing fireplaces outside, grills by the pool, open bar breakfast, making their lobby bigger, a nicer place to hang out. This is really important too with solo travel that's trending right now. Those people want to sit in places and hang out places where they can make friends, where they can meet other people, where it's not weird to sit in the lobby, right? Especially when we're thinking about work from home people or people that are there on business. These spaces are really important to them because they still want that personal connection. We still want to meet other people and hang out and experience this experience together, especially if there's an event on your property. Those are super fun. Or if I'm there by myself and I'm getting on a group tour, I would probably meet people in the lobby, right? Especially if we're all hanging out there. So just a couple more images about how much Gen Z actually likes to be in person, and everything is not tied to our phones. All right, let's talk a little bit about post day. So we're kind of getting towards the bottom of that funnel. So some tips: encourage reviews with branded hashtags. So when people are posting on Instagram, and I know right now hashtags are kind of up in the air, whether they're worth it or not, you can still have a branded hashtag specifically for you to be able to find UGC, right? So if I stay at your hotel and you ask me, hey, use hashtag blank hotel, I use that, you'll be able to find my content super easy. Encourage them to tag you. That makes it even easier. And then with their permission, you can repost that content into your strategy as well. And then making sure you're responding to the post with energy and personalization, right? Pre-stay, you've built this online community, you get them to your property, they check out, it doesn't have to end there. It shouldn't end there, right? We want to continue that relationship. When they post and tag you, they didn't have to do that, right? They could have just posted about where they went and traveled to and nothing about your hotel. So if they do that, make sure you're responding to them with that energy. Hey, we really appreciate you staying with us. We hope you had fun, whatever the case may be that fits your branding. So this is kind of just a wrap up of what we talked about, some 5 ways to attract Gen Z right now. Number 1, of course, post real content on TikTok and Instagram Reels to make sure that your SEO is getting bumped, to make sure that the algorithm is picking those things up. Showcase your values. If you're eco-friendly, you're inclusive, you're really integrated into the local community. Use mobile first booking and DM friendly support. Super important. Again, with that Gen Z being digital, they may not want to come to the front desk if they have a problem or question, or even pre-booking if they have a question. They may DM your page to ask you. So make sure you're paying attention to those things as well. Highlight communal and interactive experiences. So if you just implemented some fireplaces outside, promote that. If you have events coming up on your property that's for everybody, promote those as well. And then partner with small influencers or UGC creators. Obviously, the influencer thing is not for every property. Some may work with this, some may don't, but every single property can work with UGC creators, because do you know what UGC creators are? You're plain old guests, right? I'm a UGC creator. I don't have a big following, but if I stay at an awesome hotel, I'm going to tag them because they deserve to use that content. They deserve to know how great of a place they were. So make sure you're encouraging that. You know, if you want to give an incentive like a free drink card or whatever the case may be, make sure that you're promoting that. It can be at check-in, you know, hey, if you take any photos while you're here, feel free to tag us. Same thing at checkout. You know, if you took any photos, please tag us. We'd love to feature your content on our page as well. But this bottom point kind of wraps up everything with Gen Z, right? The power of a strong social media presence, effective online communication, and a personalized approach to customer service cannot be overstated. These are the top 3 things when working with Gen Z. They want to make sure that you're involved and that you care just as much as they do, right? Again, they're spending their hard-earned money that they don't just have to throw away. Make sure that it's worth it for them. Make them feel a part of your team, a part of your family while they're there. And you may be thinking right now, you know what, this is all great, but I don't know many Gen Z people. I don't work with any Gen Z team members. How do I go from here, right? Well, that is why TMG exists. We can be that link between your property and Gen Z. I'm Gen Z. A lot of our product team is Gen Z, right? So our team members that are responding to your reviews, our team members that are creating your social media content, they're all travelers first, right? So they're in it. They're on social media. They're reading reviews. They know what Gen Z wants to see, and they're implementing that into their strategies when they work with you, right? So keep that in mind. Obviously, if you don't know any Gen Z people, you're not on social media, you may not know what's happening, and that's totally okay. That is why we exist. That is why we want to help our hotel partners succeed. We keep up with these trends, right? Especially me. Again, like I said, I'm on Instagram and TikTok all the time. Our team members are on there all the time. They're integrating this stuff into social strategy to make sure that you're hitting every demographic everywhere they need to be hit, right? So with all this information, I want to put up this poll.